This is the Hustle and Joe podcast. Welcome to the Hustle and Joe podcast. My name is Devin. Today I have Samuel Padilla here, who I met when I was attending Morningside College. I think I was like a sophomore. We were in like the same web design class, maybe.
I think we met first through group and then was on to web design.
Yeah, web design. We were in video production class there. And yeah, I think something about Sam was just his energy that he brought to everybody. You can tell that he was different. And, you know, just seeing him progress throughout the years, it was more just seeing your growth was interesting to me and what you're doing. So, yeah, introduce yourself, what you do, and, you know, why you do it.
Perfect. First, I just wanted to say that I'm really excited to be on this podcast as well. It has been amazing to see all your growth and all the things that you went on to do after college. So I'm really excited. I am really happy that you actually thought of me and invited me to the podcast.
No problem.
So yeah, about me, my name is Sam. I am 21 years old. I just turned 21. I am an international student from Colombia and Brazil. So clearly, as you can tell by my accent, I'm not from the US. I am majoring in computer science at Morningside. This is my junior year. I'm one semester behind, but yeah, technically my junior year. And I'm starting a company called Simeon Mentor to help international students adapt to the US. So it has been just a lot of learning and growing and just hustling to grow as an entrepreneur and meet a bunch of amazing people in the process of actually trying to build something and just get into the community of hustlers, you know?
Yeah. And talking more about Simeon Mentor, can you go back to your experience when you first you came to Morningside and your experience as an international student? How were you able to, adapt to the lifestyle in the U.S., but also, just adapt better to living here? And were there like any barriers? Were there any obstacles you had to overcome? Like, tell us more about your experience with that, and start with that first, and I'll get to my next question, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like the first thing I want to mention is usually students come to the U.S. or just normal students, they start, domestic students, they start in the fall, right? The big portion of students who start college is in the fall. I started in the spring. So I came to the US in January 9th. Before that, I come from Colombia and Brazil. They're like tropical countries, super warm weather. The coldest that I've ever been was like 0 degrees, and I visited Houston, Texas. I come here without winter clothes, without a winter jacket, without gloves.
Did you speak any English before?
I did speak some English. And that's an advantage though, because a bunch of international students end up coming to the US and they don't know any English whatsoever. Yeah. But I stepped out of the plane in Sioux City, Iowa, in the middle of nowhere. I just saw corn as the plane was about to land.
Your first look in the U.S. was corn.
Just corn in the Midwest. And I step out of the plane, boom, -9 Celsius, which is, I don't know, like 20 something Fahrenheit. Super freezing for me. I was like, whoa, it's a lot colder than I thought it was going to be. So that was my first impression. And that kind of gave me an idea of what I was about to experience in the US. So I knew English before coming here, but actually started to talk with a bunch of domestic people, local people who have a bunch of slangs and talk with several different type of accents. It was really hard to adapt to that aspect. It was really hard to adapt to the social life. So the way social dynamics work in the US is completely different than the way that it works back in my countries. And also just the academic system. And in general, it was a challenge, but I feel like something I want to mention is there's a big difference between adapting and actually making the most out of it. And that's kind of the idea. And that's kind of the core value that we have in Steven. You're going to adapt as an international student. You're going to adapt. Doesn't matter what happens. It can take you 6 months, a year, but you're going to adapt. You're eventually going to figure out a way to survive. But there's a big difference between just surviving and cruising through your years in college and actually developing the right mindset and actually getting involved in your community and actually figuring out ways to make the most out of the experience. So exactly what we're doing here right now, exactly the things that we've been doing in the recent years, all the things that we got involved with, all the people that we get to know, that we had the chance to meet. All those are just because we actually developed the proper mindset and started actually making things happen. I feel like there's a big difference between adapting and actually making that leap and becoming a person who's actually making the most out of its experience.
So how did, I guess, when you're, going through that experience of being international students, and you're adapting and you're making it, you're making that change to actually making the most of it. Was that the start of, why you wanted to start Student Mentor? Like since you had that experience, did you want to make that easier for other international students? Like, how did that idea come about, and when was the first time you thought of that?
Yeah. So I lived the whole experience myself, and I met a bunch of amazing people in the way, and you saw the pattern that there was a big difference between those who actually understand how to be successful international students and make the most out of the experience, and those who just got into the routine of going to classes, playing video games, and going to parties in the weekend. There's a big difference between those two profiles. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? Why did some of my friends develop the right mindset and went on to achieve amazing things? And why most of the other guys are just being kind of following the same path? So we started looking a little deeper into it, and that's when the idea for Steven came to be. I was like, okay, what if we actually help people speed up the adaptation process? So kind of the core idea of Steven Mentor is the adaptation process that will take you a semester. We try to do it in like a little bit over a month. Mm-hmm. We try to like inform you with a bunch of things that took us years to learn. And after that, we start focusing only on helping you develop the right mindset, connecting you to people, and giving you the tools and showing you the way to actually make the most out of the experience and developing yourself personally and just growing as a person and becoming one of those who actually makes the most out of the experience instead of just, again, going to classes, playing video games, and going to parties in the weekends.
Yeah. So in what like platforms or like resources, like how are you delivering that to them? And I know like it's not just Morningside, but it's people across the U.S. So how are you getting this information to them, and what forms?
Okay, so the first product that we released was Simeon Perot. Simeon Perot was a first semester program. So the idea is to help them speed up their adaptation process as well as help them develop the right mindset. The way Simeon Perot is delivered is through video content, exactly what you guys are doing here, but it's a little more focused on the international student experience. As a matter of fact, we ended up using some of Morningside's the studio. We use the studio a lot to record all the videos, and we record like I'm even exhausted by so much of recording and editing in the last weeks. We recorded like 34 videos in 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. It was like bizarre. But we got everything done, and the idea was to like deliver all the information through videos. But the most important thing was to develop the personal relationship through one-to-one mentorships. Mm-hmm. So we have calls with our students every month, every week. We had weekly calls. So the idea was to actually start building that one-on-one connection and having that one-on-one conversation.
And they'll feel more comfortable to talk with you about certain issues that they're having, and you're able to provide that, I went through the same thing, and this is how I got through it. And then also, and I know that, do you have like a team that's helping you with these videos and helping you like talk to these other students? Like, how does your team how important is it to have that team help you? Yeah.
So the team is made out of 4 people. We are all Brazilians. The 4 guys in the team are all Brazilians. And we selected these 4 people. I mean, I'm included. So me and 3 other people. We picked those students who we saw that were exceptional international students, those who actually figure out how to, again, make the most out of the experience. And we basically have been running the whole company, all of us 4 together. So pitching into ideas, dividing the responsibility, and the recording was on, the work of recording and editing was divided through the whole team. And if it wasn't for them, and if it wasn't for the whole team, it would have been absolutely impossible to get anything done. It would have been impossible to get sales. It would have been impossible to get students to work with us. So everything that happened was just thanks to the team.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you were doing kind of videos before you even started Steven Mentor. Like you're doing vlogs, you're kind of just capturing everything that you were going through. And also, I also was super like interested in what is the LLWR stand for, and what does it mean to you? Because I know it kind of stands, and you live by that motto.
So I feel like that's a core idea that changed my whole life. When I was 18, 17, I developed this mindset of LLWR, which stands for Live a Life You Will Remember. I even have a flag. I think you've seen the flag with the
saying on it.
Yeah, saying Live a Life You Will Remember. And that is just the mindset that I started developing for me. It's pretty much the hustling mindset. It's like you want something, take accountability for it, know what you want, and actually start working towards it, and start taking steps, and actually start taking actions, and take risks, and just achieve what you want to achieve. That's the whole idea of LLWR, figuring out what for you is going to make your life memorable, and just pursuing that hard.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of what we're taught when we're growing up is, oh, you need to get a job. You need to, it's kind of like the guidelines that people are like feeding you throughout while you're growing up to be like, all right, these are just the steps and this is what you're supposed to do. And, people don't even get exposed to that type of mindset of, oh, if I want something, I can go get it. And no matter what, I can put in the work to, I'd rather live this lifestyle of actually enjoying what I do and, what I actually want. And I don't have to care about, being judged or comparing my life to anyone else. So,
but that's where the work of people like you comes in, So like even what you're doing with the podcast, trying to inform young adults that yes, you can actually take accountability for your life and you can actually do whatever you want to do. You don't need to live somebody else's life. And I really think that we not only don't get exposed to that mindset, but we never really wake up. Like I do this analogy with some of my friends that the path that you need to follow is already set in stone. Like you just, if you keep going, you're going to end up somewhere. Like if I just go with the flow, I'm probably going to go to school. I'm probably going to finish high school. I'm probably going to go to college. I'm probably going to find a job and build a life.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out. Like the path, if you don't consciously think about where you're going to end up somewhere because the system kind of builds a path for you to follow. But what a lot of people don't do, and that's when you actually start seeing the difference in the mindset of people is, okay, wait. Where is this path taking me? Do I want to get there? And if I don't, then where do I want to go? And then you start building your own path that's going to take you wherever you want to go. Yeah. So I feel like that's the main deal, like actually seeing that you're on a path that is basically meant for you for it to be easy. You don't need to consciously think about where you're going. But when you actually question it, you're like, okay, do I really want to go there? You kind of start shifting the idea. And for example, just the whole idea of coming to the US is for an international student is a complete shift in the usual path.
Yep.
So in the city where I grew up in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, the usual path is you go to school, you go to high school, you study really hard to try to get into the public university of the city. You get into the public university of the city, and then you find a public job working for the government, and you live a decent life. And then I was looking at that path, and I was asking, okay, do I really want to do that? And the answer was no, I do not. And then I started saying, okay, maybe I want to go to the US to play tennis, right? Mm-hmm. And then I play tennis. So maybe I want to go to the US and find a scholarship. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the challenge when you start looking outside of the path, because since there is not a clear way to follow, you need to start asking, how do I get there? And that's when you actually need to start developing your own path. And that's where growth happens.
Yeah, I'm sure you had like also a lot of outside voices kind of like talking to you. Had that have any influence? Like what did your parents think about it? Or what did your peers, and did you have anybody that was like, why are you going to the U.S. or, what, did you have any like good or bad experience with that? Like, tell us how that was.
Yeah. I'm just going to take off my head.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, just throw it wherever.
Okay. So, my stepmom, amazing person. I'm the person I am thanks to all the things she did for me. But she wasn't a big fan of the idea of me coming to the U.S. There's a bunch of amazing colleges in Brazil, and there's a bunch of even better colleges in Morningside and opportunities there. But I just wanted the challenge of being by myself, of needing to figure out my things. Of Jesus, if I break my leg, I can't go to my dad. My dad is like on the other hemisphere. Like I can't. It's independence. Yep. So a lot of people, when they saw that, they actually. Personally, I had the chance to have a very supporting family and supporting dad, and they really liked that. Besides my stepmom, nobody really like talked me down or anything. But it was interesting though, because when my friends saw what I wanted to do, instead of trying to hold me back, instead of saying, why are you going there? It's pointless, just stay here. They were actually like surprised, admired, and inspired. Mm-hmm. So that made me feel that at least in the circles that I used to live down in Brazil, a lot of people want to do that. A lot of people want to not necessarily come to the US, but just a lot of people want to go off the beaten path.
But it's not the norm.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And going off the norm scares them. And there are few people that actually have the courage to do something different. And those who actually do end up inspiring a lot of people.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we were in school, I remember like I wasn't really super involved into entrepreneurship group, but you were really involved, and you also went to like the pitch competitions, like national, right?
Yeah.
So, take us through that process of how you got into that pitch competition. What did you pitch, and how did that turn out?
Yeah. So even before talking about the pitch competition, I want to talk a little bit more about the mindset that I developed around joining groups and getting involved, because it's an important thing to share. I feel like, and this is not only for international students, I feel like this is for every student in the US in general. Colleges, mostly small colleges, mostly in the Midwest, they're a bubble. They're basically like high school 2.0. You're in a bubble where you live, you go to classes, and you go to parties in the same square mile. You don't need to leave that bubble for anything. And it can easily make you like alienate you from the real world, So college is like a perfect closed and enclosed and safe environment. The challenge is to find ways to get out of that bubble into real world opportunities, real world experiences, because the world clearly doesn't work like a college. So the people that actually start standing out in a college are those who figure out a way to leave the college bubble and actually get more involved with the real world opportunities. Like what you did with all your beta projects when we were growing up in the first couple classes that we took together, when you got involved with Honeywave, that's actually real world stuff, and that's when you really grow. So to me, since I have some limitations around working in the US because of my visa, my student visa, the way that I found to find real world opportunities was through groups. One of the groups that really changed my life was the entrepreneurship group, and all the professional connections and all the opportunities that I ended up discovering through the entrepreneurship group. One of them was some of the national conferences that I went to and some of the pitch competitions that I went to. I pitched some businesses that I worked on for a while before getting on with Steven. And in some of the pitches, I did horribly. And in some other pitches, we ended up doing really, really well. I made it to the final of the pitch competition.
Were they just judges, or was there like a bigger audience for
both?
For both?
So you had the judges and you had an audience watching the pitch. Out of like 100, that was last year. That was the last national pitch competition. Out of like 100 people competing, I pitched and made it to the last 8. So that was really,
a good achievement.
Cool. Yeah, that was a really cool achievement. And it was cool to see that more even that making it to the top 8, or more even that being able to like fight for money, even though we didn't get any money. The really cool thing was, okay, I am actually learning how this business deal works. I'm actually learning what investors look for. I'm actually growing as a founder, So that was kind of the coolest thing.
And one of the biggest thing is like, even if you're just going through college and you're getting education, like you are, even so, you're still furthering your education in some sort of other way. You're going out to you're stepping out to the real world. Like you said, you're going to these competitions, you're meeting people, you're talking to people who've already done it and they have their experiences. So you're taking little bits and pieces and being like, all right, now this is how I want to live my life and how I want to direct Steven. So yeah, I mean, that plays a big part in, experiencing those things that are out of your comfort zone and things that you actually want to do. Because I don't really think I could relate to like an international student level, but I studied abroad in Spain last summer, not this summer, but last summer. And I had like the same experiences, but it probably wasn't as bad because I wasn't staying there for a long time. I stayed there for a month in Spain. It was really culture shocking. My Spanish wasn't, A1. I would say it was like subpar. Yeah. So I think I just took the chance because I was like, I wanted to see how it is to be independent and kind of just see what it's like. And I was minoring Spanish anyway, so I had to finish my degree. And then I just was dropped off there. You know, I had to take a train, 6-hour train or bus to the city I was staying at, and talk to people in Spanish I didn't know. It was just super uncomfortable. Got dropped off to my house, my host family, and they didn't speak a lick of English, and it was just all Spanish. And it was like breakdown first day. So like I could definitely like kind of relate to that international student type of feeling that people were having. And
but you felt it, the need for independence. And the really cool thing about independence is independence at the end becomes accountability. So when you realize that you need to be independent, you realize it in those situations, being an international student or even studying abroad, you're accountable for you. You are accountable for your life. You're accountable for your actions. And I feel like that's the best piece of advice that you can give to anybody. Like, just be accountable for your life. And the international student experience or even studying abroad gives you that accountability, gives you that independence.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you're studying computer science, right?
Yep.
How are you utilizing, what you're studying into, your entrepreneurship journey, whether that be your other things you're working on or Steven Mentor? Like, how are you using that education, but also using it like outside of just school?
Mm-hmm. So Steven is a little far from becoming a tech platform. We're mostly focused on content, just for the next few
years. And just creating
months.
That audience and creating that relationships that you need first before you can expand to those areas.
Yeah. We have the goal to actually become a tech platform in the future, but for now we're just focused on the content. So I'm kind of working, those are my two main focus. On one hand, I am focusing on Steven with the whole team. We're just focusing on growing Steven. And on the other hand, on a personal level, I'm focused on becoming the best possible computer scientist that there is, Mm-hmm. And I am completely in love with startups. I know I want to make my life and build my life around businesses and startups and tech go like hand to hand. Mm-hmm. So for me, I am personally working on my programming skills. I'm trying to put my work out there. Every cool project that I end up doing, either for the college or for just a personal project, I post it up on GitHub. I just try to put my stuff out there. I try to get involved in also like hackathons. You know the concept of a hackathon?
No, what is
a hackathon? Basically is a hacking competition. You go and program for 24 hours, 30 hours straight, and you build something. Okay. And the best something wins the prize or whatever. Okay. So you just trying to go to those events, meeting people, learning more, and basically just as I develop my personal skills, I continue to develop Steven, and I hope down the line they can cross. If Steven doesn't follow through or something happens, I can always take my abilities, my technical abilities, and my entrepreneurial abilities to the startup world in general. Yeah. But I feel like that's really cool because you don't see that many founders that are technical. Mostly in the tech startup scenes, you see a lot of there are several technical founders, but usually those are two skills that don't really overlap. Okay. So you're either really good with business or you're either really, really technical. Yeah. Those are like two non-overlapping skills. And I really love the concept of opposing skills. Mm-hmm. When you're actually able to have two skills that seem to be completely opposite, that's when you become extraordinary,
Yeah. And I feel like that statement is so true because for me, I'm just a good creator. Like I do need a team that has different skills like Taylor or Brad, who has the business building skills and the communication skills. And, I don't really have a whole lot of knowledge. Like I'm kind of building there, but I can see myself excel in this one area. But then I also have to build a team who's able to help me out in, communication or, even just video. Like I'm bad at creating copy for posts. Like I think I have to work on that. And even then you can kind of micro scale that to like two specific things that, you can be one thing or the other. But I also saw that you got, or the Future Founders, and you also were nominated, or you were chosen to, as a startup at the, what was
How I Build This Summit.
Okay, can you go more into that, how you kind of maybe had an application for it and how you got chosen to do that?
Absolutely. So it has been really beautiful to see the power that networking, the idea of networking has had in my life, mostly in my recent years here in the US. So my first semester, I got involved with entrepreneurship group where I ended up meeting Josh Thoring that we Josh, we were at his wedding last week.
Congrats, Josh.
Yeah. Congratulations, Josh. Amazing wedding, beautiful. But yeah, I met him, and through him, I ended up meeting this organization called Future Founders. Future Founders is a startup accelerator / fellowship from Chicago. They basically help startups scale. I ended up applying for one of his programs for Steven, and we got accepted. Nice. So Steven got accepted for a program that they had called the residency. And we went through the whole residency for this first semester of this year. So the spring semester of this year, we were part of this residency, scaling the business. Thanks to them, actually, we got our first sales. So they helped us structure our business so that we could actually get the first sales in. And through one of our advisors at Future Founders, we found out about this opportunity called the How I Build This Fellowship. So I assume you have heard of the How I Build This podcast with Guy Raz. And a huge podcast by NPR. Every year they do a huge summit in San Francisco called the How I Build This Summit.
Yep.
They bring amazing founders like tier 1 founders, and they have an amazing summit, amazing networking opportunity. For you to have an idea, just a ticket to the conference is like $1,300.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
for like, just one person, or just
for just one person. For just one person, it's $1,300. So like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's too much.
And we applied for it, and we applied for the fellowship. Basically, is you get a free ticket to the summit, and you get like a special programming for the whole summit. We applied for the fellowship with Steven, and we got in. So we got a free ticket for the conference, and we're also gonna be having like a special program throughout the summit and meeting a bunch of amazing people, and it's something we're really looking forward to.
Yeah. So how do you, I guess from your experience with Future Founders, how do you scale a business like Steven Mentor, and how, like, take us through like also the sale process? Like, how do you get your first sale, and what is that sale process like form around?
I feel like it's all form around building a pipeline.
Okay.
So just, you need to know who you're selling to. Clearly, you need to know first. You need to build a product that is actually needed. So something that we really focus on in the startup world is like customer discovery. And I'm sure you've heard the term before.
Yeah,
it's basically just talking to the person you want to serve and figure out exactly what they need and build a solution to solve their problems, and not to build a solution that fits your idea. It's just knowing exactly what your client needs and giving that to them. In that process of customer discovery, you start building a pipeline. You start building a bunch of people that you talk to for a few minutes, for an hour even, and that you're building something to help them. Once you start having those connections, and when you start building that audience around you, you can start having people to like enter the pipeline. So you have an audience, and then you go with this audience through steps in the pipeline. So you ask for them to do an application. You ask them to follow you on this platform, and just keep dragging them along the pipeline. And when you get at the end, it's just trying to convert them.
And it's not a one-time thing. It's like a subscription thing where you'd be like, all right, if I sign up for Steven Mentor, I can receive emails, I can receive content, I can receive other resources. Is that how Steven Mentors kind of formed around in that process?
So we have our free content, our basic free content. That is all that we put out in social media, and also all the newsletters that we sent out. But on top of that, we have Simeon Perot, which was our first kind of minimum viable product. So it's like the bare bones things that we can do to actually deliver the value that we want to deliver. And this is like a one-time payment for the semester. So all the 16 students that we're working with now, they pay for the whole semester, and we're working with them throughout the whole semester to help them in their journey.
So other than that, let's talk more about, I know when we were kind of meeting, we were both like Gary Vee fans, and I mean, we still kind of are. We're supporters. Once you listen to some of his messages, then it's more like, all right, now I need to go do what I need to do. Yeah. But I guess the podcast, obviously the Hustle and Joe podcast, but he also talks about, hustle and, what it means to be, chasing what you want in life. But the more important message is also like being able to hustle, but also, having a balance too. You don't want to overwork yourself. You want to still enjoy life. You're still a college student, so you want to enjoy the college experience, but you also want to pursue your dreams. So could you talk about your experience about, when you're starting Steven Mentor, your other ventures? I know you really worked hard at it, but did you also have to balance out your social life? Like what did that look like?
I feel like the balance conversation is really, really, really delicate, because there are a lot of people who just get into the mindset of, I just gotta overwork everybody and I'm gonna overwork myself and try to work more than everybody else. And that is a very, very dangerous mindset, because when you get into the hustling mindset, you're in it long term. You're not in it for like a year and then you expect to have like lifelong returns. The issue with getting into the overworking mindset is that you're gonna burn out eventually. So that's why you need to have some sort of balance. But I don't like the idea. I don't like the word balance, because it gives you the idea of, okay, this is work and this is what I do for pleasure.
I think mostly it's like switching the mindset.
Exactly.
Like you need to enjoy what you do, and you can't think of it as work. You just got to be like, all right, I love what I do, and you can't just be like, I feel like the stress and that you put on yourself or the pressure, it's just not worth it. You just put it on yourself, and it's just kind of like not a healthy way of living if you just think, oh, it's just a balance, but you just need to think of your passion.
It's all about passion. That's a perfect word for me. It's just finding what gives you purpose, finding what you're willing to work for, and finding just those things that you're actually passionate about. So heck, if I'm passionate about just business in general, I'm gonna dig in super, super deep, and it's gonna feel amazing because I'm passionate about it. But it's just being well-rounded in your passions, So have passions that go into the professional side, have passions that go into the personal side, have passions that go into the athletic side of things. So in my personal life, something that I found that gives me joy is in my professional life, working on startups, working on tech. That brings me joy in my professional life. In my sports life, to try to stay healthy and active, I started climbing. Climbing absolutely changed my life, and I've been hustling really hard for climbing. And in my personal life, my relationships, the relationships that I built with my closest friends, with my girlfriend, those all just bring me joy, and those are things that I love investing my time into. So instead of just finding the balance, I feel like it's just finding your passions in every aspect of your life.
But also finding or investing your time in the things that bring you joy and that you find joy in. That's also really important when you're chasing, your dream. Like if you like working out, you like to be healthy, and you're also pursuing something, that might be also important too.
How is that idea for you though? I'm curious, how do you see the whole concept of balance, and how do you try to balance things in your life?
I mean, I think it's kind of like, I feel like, like you said, the balance is not really the right word. Because I can see myself, I definitely had that same mindset. It was like, oh, I need to outwork everybody, or this is the only way that I feel like I could do to succeed. But honestly, it was like, I put that pressure on myself. Like, I don't need to validate how much hard work I put in. I don't want to compare my life to anybody. I don't need to validate my hard work. Because at the end, when I'm 80, 90 years old and I'm on my deathbed, it won't be measured by how much hard work I put in. It's just going to be like, how much joy did I do? How many lives did I impact? And that's how I think about it. It was like, balance, I just feel like you just need to invest in the times, or invest in the people and the things that you enjoy, and just finding joy in the things you do, and just kind of pursue those things. And that's the only thing you should pursue. And you can't have the mindset of, you can't have the ego either, or the mindset of kind of, oh, I'm like only need to do this. And so that's kind of like my take about, balance and how hard work kind of fits in my life.
I really think is like you were spot on what you said of at the end it's not gonna be measured by like how hard you worked or even how much money you made or how many accomplishments you had. It's just the everyday, you know, it's just like the constant what brings you joy, what brings you contentment every single day of your life. And I feel like that's the whole deal. So just do what makes you content, whatever that is. Solve the problems, work on the things that you want to work on, and that actually bring purpose to your life. That's the whole deal.
Yeah, and I think like I just feel like it's so hard. It's not like hard, but it's more difficult for our generation and the younger generations to be like, we have social media in our life, and it's impacting us in good ways and bad ways because. Like unintentionally, if we're scrolling through social media, we're seeing other people's highlights. You know, we're not seeing everything, and it's really impacting the way that we're trying to live our lives. Even though we're not thinking about it, we might be like,
it's there. Yeah,
it's there because we're if I'm pursuing videography or the business, you know, I'm seeing other people who are doing great things. But it's more like I need to find joy in the things that I'm doing, and that's the only thing that should matter. And if I'm doing it in Sioux City, Iowa, then I should love that.
Yeah,
I should find joy that I'm making impact in this area. I don't need to move to a bigger city like California, like city in California or out in New York or Toronto. Like I can do and have the same amount of impact here and find joy in doing that. I think I figured that out. Kind of like midway starting Honeywave Media with Taylor and Brad, but it was just because like, I was starting out. There needs to be some sort of sacrifices and hard work when you're starting out a company because you need to put in the work to just like start a foundation for yourself. So that was just really important for me to have that learning curve, you know, while building the business was like, you know, I can't compare my life to these other people who are doing great things, but I can definitely build something for myself here.
There's always going to be somebody doing better than you at any aspect in your life. There's always going to be somebody that's recording amazing videos better than your videos. There's always going to be somebody that's, I don't know, has more muscle than you do. I don't know. Whatever you hold as valuable in your life, there's always going to be somebody excelling at it. And I feel like the issue with social media, and I'm really glad you touched that point, is that social media makes us extremely aware of other people's races. So you start seeing what other people are doing, and automatically you compare it to yourself, and you're always like, okay, this person is doing this and I'm not doing this, right? Yeah. So you're like, you start being aware of other people's races without realizing that everybody's just throwing in your own race. You know, you just focus on the stuff that you do.
And the thing is that it's kind of going back to what I said, but everyone has their own timeline. Yeah. Don't compare your timeline to someone else's timeline because, you know, what you should focus on is your own journey. Yeah. And if you're busy focusing on other people's journey, then you're just gonna, you know, mentally you're gonna kind of break. Yeah. You know, so
there's something else that another negative side of social media that I think most people are not aware about. And this conversation about seeing other people and comparing to other people, I feel like most people are somehow aware of this. But this idea that I want to tell is something that it took me a while to realize. And it was probably the biggest change in mindset that I had in the recent year. So you said it. You said that social media is just looking at other people's highlights. And even social media for you, what you show in social media is your highlights, right? So you have this platform where people are only sharing highlights. And yeah, it's great. Everything looks amazing. But like the issue is that life is not made of highlights. Like, dude, I wake up and 90% of my day is average, just like lame. 90% of our lives is just lame, is average. So I feel like social media and the social media culture is starting to make us live a life focused on highlights. So I realized that I was personally living for those moments, and I even used to be proud of that mindset of this is all that matters, just those moments where you just feel like on the top of the world. So you're in this amazing city, you achieve this amazing thing, you whatever, like those highlights in your life and those small moments.
Yeah, and not like matters. To discredit what you do, but you're seeing that through that lens of, oh, I'm just living for these only moments.
Yeah, and that's a big issue, man. That's that's toxic somehow in your life, because you start only living for those moments, and those moments are extremely limited in your life. Like 90% of your life or even more is just lame, dude. It's just solving problems that nobody cares about. Yeah. So waking up, brushing your teeth in the morning, showering, going to class, it's normal stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. But if you have your focus and your idea of happiness depending on the highlights, on the high moments, on those moments, then you're just gonna have a very frustrating life, because you're not gonna live those moments every time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the key change in my perspective and the key change in my mindset was to, instead of focusing on the highlights, focusing on the lows, or not even the lows, just the averageness, like finding meaning, finding joy, and finding contentment in my average life. Because bottom line, most of our lives is just average, it's just solving problems. There's a really, really good book. I'm a big advocate for this book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Okay. Have you heard of it?
I think I've heard of it. Who's the author?
Mark Manson.
I think I've seen it. Dude, I think I've seen it. I need to go get that.
Read it. It's amazing. One of the chapters, chapter number 2, the name of the chapter, for you to have an idea, talks exactly about this idea. It's called Happiness is a Problem, because he associates happiness with the peaks in your life. But the key thing is to be, again, to find joy and meaning in solving the small problems of every single day. So finding the joy in the averageness, and that's where the beauty comes in. And that's in my humble opinion, I feel like that's the secret for a life well lived. That you actually find what makes you happy every single day.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. I just kind of look back at like my everyday things. Like I come in, you know, I do like kind of travel here and there for video shoots and stuff, but most of my average days I come in, I edit all day videos, and you know, sometimes I feel myself mentally kind of like, oh, this kind of feels like, you know, kind of like I'm struggling mentally, because it just seems like a long day and I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Then more I feel like I figured out was like I was kind of enjoying the days like that I was staying in, because it's like I just wouldn't rather be doing anything else. And it's that type of positive mindset that you need to have when you're pursuing something, because you can't be like always down on yourself or wishing that things were different, because that's just reality. You know, reality is not everybody having these highlight moments. You know, not everyone's life is majority of just reality. You know, like what you're going through day to day. No one's traveling to different states and countries all the time. You know, and I feel guilty too when I'm posting on social media about highlights, is, you know, because I'm doing the same thing to other people. I'm being perceived by someone else that's like, oh, he's traveling to places, and I just don't want to have that impact on anybody.
I feel like that's what sells in the platform, though. That's what we do it, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard because like my whole business and my personal brand's all around content. And even though like we, you know, the tech and like social media is growing, it's tough to really be putting out your work and showing people what you can do. But more or less, I think I find more fulfillment in the content I make if it's telling somebody's story. Because I want to help someone tell their story on social media, and it's for a positive thing. It's helping other people. I'd rather do that than make highlights of my life. You know, I rather find joy and fulfillment. That's why like when I'm editing videos for personal branding and they have their whole message and their story around how to, you know, benefit someone's personal development, I find joy in that, even though it kind of sucks, you know, my everyday life. Not saying like it sucks, but, you know, it gets long. I can find fulfillment in that. But more going to like social media now, like I kind of take like short social media breaks, and I'd be like, I can go on social media with intentionality and be like, I only post, you know, what I find joy in, I guess, but also like just maybe some piece of work that I'm doing, like kind of behind the scenes. But yeah, it's kind of hard to like figure out what we can do to not just affect someone by just posting our highlights. It's kind of like your personal view, but also you have to go into like, what are other people like perceiving me as too? Because you're affecting your followers' lives too.
Something that I tried doing, I didn't follow through with this. And one of my plans is to go back really hard in social media and building my personal brand. I still got to organize it a little better. One of the things that I tried doing was creating a stories series called #vulnerability, where basically the whole idea was just to post a bunch of lame stuff and like negative things of my life. So I just did one story saying how for the summer, one of my goals was to be able to stop hitting snooze every time that I woke up. And I had the goal of achieving 45, like doing that 45 days during the summer. I did that 3 days.
You put snooze 3 days?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
press
okay.
snooze 3 days. And the other 42 days I pressed. So that's something I shared. Like something extremely lame that I did and I couldn't achieve it. Here, I'm being vulnerable. And I was trying to challenge myself to see how vulnerable I could be. But I ended up not following through with this. I wanna go back to it. But that's a good idea. So like showing a little bit more of the
realness.
Yeah.
I feel like that concept's so dope because like it's just a different perspective. If someone sees on social media, oh, this is real stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm actually going through. And this is like my mind. Like people on social media is all about highlights, but when you if you're in that vulnerable spot, then you actually get to know what's going on in an individual's mind. And I think that's important to show that realness in people's lives. And like, I'm not perfect and this is what's actually happening. And if we can, I feel like show people that realness, then it kind of gives a sense of community, like, oh, I'm going through the same thing. So then they can find, kind of relate in the same way. And it's just a different, like, you see all these highlights and then you come across this like post that's just all like real. And I feel like more people be like, oh, that's different.
Yep.
That's not just someone
showing
on a boat or on the beach or anything. This is actually someone's life. So like, I feel like I'm more attracted to stuff like that rather than what's popular on social media.
You know something, a thought experiment that I like doing with people to show this point is think about, I don't know about you, man, but like I personally, and I feel like a lot of people do this, but I personally always or almost always check social media when I'm sitting on the toilet. Like when I'm pooping, And it's like the most average moment in my life. I'm just pooping, man. It's like normal. And I'm checking social media and I'm just seeing 100, like just seeing like all of my friends' highlights and all the amazing things that are going on with their lives. And then I ask myself, okay, how many people are using the same platform while they're also pooping, And it's really funny to think that you're in this platform where everything is highlights and you're in it while you're doing the most average thing of your life, like using the toilet. Yeah. And after you stop using it, it's even like sad almost. Like you see all these highlights and you think, oh, these people have amazing lives. My friends have amazing lives. And I'm just here about to like wipe my butt after I finish pooping, But like everybody's doing that though. That's the issue. It's not only you do. Like everybody's using Instagram. Everybody that's using Instagram has an average life, and they just don't show it.
And it's kind of crazy to think that we have everything that we want in our hand. Yeah. Like everything that we want to achieve or want, like you can go on Amazon, you can click that you want to buy something, it'll be in your doorstep 2 days later. You can watch Netflix, movies, listen to music, stream, whatever you need. Like it's at the touch of your hand. I talked about this in my church group. So kind of going back to Spain, like when I went there, like you can tell like the people actually enjoyed other people's company in Europe. Like when you walk through the streets, no one's phones was out. Everyone was talking to each other. Everyone, like if you ran by a cafe, you just see people talking. No one's on their phones. No one even has their phone on the table. And that was just like super interesting to me because I feel like when you put the phone down, you can enjoy life a lot better. And it's kind of like weird to say, but like, like when like social media or like smartphones didn't even exist, now like everyone feels like they need to have it in their hands at all times. So like if they're waiting in line for whatever for food or waiting at the restaurant and you're sitting with your friends, you see everybody's just on their phone.
But dude, it's so hard to, even though I agree with that completely, and I try my best to try to put the phone down when things are happening, just to enjoy life, or not even enjoy life, but just be present in the averageness of my life. But it is so hard to keep yourself away from social media because that's how it is designed. It's designed to be addictive. It's designed to hook you in and not let you out. It's designed to like steal your attention. So I feel like the issue with that is a lot more than just people's behavior. I feel like the issue with that addiction to social media is not only our fault, is also like the fault of the designers of these platforms. It's like you get addicted to a cigarette because you're addicted to nicotine. It's the same deal. You're addicted to social media because you're addicted to the dopamine rush that you feel when you go on social media. And yes, there's a lot of things that you can do personally to get rid of it and try to like mitigate the usage of social media. But I feel like something that very few people are talking about in the tech world is the ethical responsibility that the designers of these platforms have, because they make this to act like this. They make this to be an addiction for us.
Yeah. And I feel like they kind of make it without having that in mind, though. Like they don't have the ethical values to be like, oh, I'm influencing somebody's way of living.
No, dude, I think they know. I really think they know. I really think they know.
And I've heard they just think, oh, this is just how it's going to be now.
It makes them money, dude. Like the more time you spend on the platform, the more money people make. So it's I really want to recommend you this podcast. Is by Vanity Fair. I'm gonna
write these down. So
write it down.
The book. Wait, what was the book first?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Okay.
Amazing book. Really, really recommended.
And then what's the podcast?
The podcast is called Vanity Fair. Is by Vanity Fair. Is How Silicon Valley Became Evil.
Okay.
And it basically shows how. So you know how. An economy that is just based on extraction is not sustainable. So basically just in exploiting resources. So you go to a developing country and you just extract all of their minerals and you take them away. Basically, the social media industry is building an economy of extraction, but now the extraction is just our attention. You're just mining our attention, and that's not sustainable in the long term. You just have your attention being mined all the time so that these companies can have your attention on their platform so that they can sell you stuff. Like this guy that of the podcast that I told you, this episode, they're interviewing a guy that was an ethical designer for Google or something like that.
Okay.
And he's saying like there are conferences on like people like research that shows how to get people more hooked up onto this. So, if we realize that if you change the color of the notification from green to red, makes people click on it 40% more times or something like that. Like they're aware of this and they make it on purpose. And this is designed to be addictive. And dude, that's evil. That's really evil.
That's super interesting to see that, they're actually aware of this, but they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And
makes them money. So.
Yeah, it makes them money. But, I feel like at the end of the day, as individuals, we're still at that decision to use whatever, like I feel like it's hard. You can have the discipline, if you can be more aware of it. Yeah. And, you can have the discipline, you kind of choose how you want to use it. But
dude, just think about how unreal, and for all the people that are listening to this episode as well, think about how unreal the idea of completely deleting social media sounds. It's just it's almost like impossible, dude. Okay, so if I delete social media, how am I gonna talk to my friends? How am I gonna stay updated in the news? How am I going to share all my content? It just seems unreal.
And just think about like all the businesses that are built on social media.
Exactly.
All out of business if that didn't exist.
Exactly.
And that is true. And I feel like times are changing where we just, I don't know, not have to adapt, but we just have to kind of form our lives kind of, in the best way possible. Now that this new technology, like new social media technology is kind of taking its way, we have to kind of form our life around it.
I really like the idea personally of completely getting off social media. But I haven't done that yet because I still want to make content. I still feel like I have content to make. But say in 10 years from now, I come to a point in my life where I just want to travel around in my van and climb. I'm out of social media, dude. I don't need it anymore. But I'm really curious though about you guys' situation. For example, like Honeywave, you have a business that's built around social media. You guys can't get off social media, otherwise the business dies. So for the people, like the individual like you that's working in a business that's based on social media, since you need to be around that industry and that environment so much, people who work in those areas really need to be aware of how to mitigate the toxicity of social media and how to and even they have the responsibility to, as content producers, try to make social media as less toxic as possible. So what we're talking about, instead of showing only the highlights, trying to show more the real side of things. And it is important though, because the way social media is going, dude, which is just toxicity and just people showing how amazing their lives is and all the consequences that they have, it's just unsustainable.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Now that you brought that up, is like, now that I'm making content, for some of my clients, like the clients that have like these messages that improve personal development, I can get behind all those messages. But for some clients that I have, like I'm making a lot of highlighted stuff for their brand. And it's like, this is not how it always is for your brand. And it's like kind of got that ethical dilemma, is like, I still need to make content because that's what's thriving our business. But then again, it's like, now that you say that with the highlights, it's not also the right thing for people to see their brand and be like, oh, it's just jolly all the time, or this is how it is all the time. So I do see that kind of battle, I guess, when I'm making content for
the biggest content producers are like, say Gary Vee, for example. I admire him a lot because of his active effort to put out positivity into the platform. So all of you guys that are actually making all this content, you guys have the responsibility of put out positive stuff out there. Not only in your personal brands, but also try to like keep that in mind for your clients as well, because the default of social media, in my opinion, is just toxicity. It's just showing that your life is amazing and make other people feel bad because your life is not as amazing as you show that yours is. So the big content producers on these platforms, I feel like they need to be aware of the issue. They need to take care, the individual working in these companies need to take care of that. Like need to like guard themselves from that toxicity. And they also have the responsibility to try to make the platform as positive as possible.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I'm going to try to implement more now that I'm, doing a lot more content now. It's just try to think of that way as much as possible while I'm trying to create content for other people. But getting, I guess, towards the end of the podcast, and we're going to kind of cut it short. It's almost been an hour, but going back to Steven Mentor, what direction are you seeing it take off in the future, and like what are your future plans for the company you're building?
So for Steven, our main focus right now is to find institutional clients or institutional partners. By institution, we mean working with colleges, working with agencies that bring international students to the US, or working with any other organization that has a big group of internationals. Because what we realized is, even though we have a big audience of incoming international students, it is a lot harder for us from a business standpoint to go after each one of these clients and end up converting them to our products. It is a lot easier to start offering the service to organizations. They have more financial power, they have more students, and they like the way that we saw that we can build a sustainable business model in the long term is to work with organizations rather than with
and
students.
Also like it's hard to reach specific individuals, but if you can reach out to organizations who have access to, like you said, more resources, more funds, and also more students, they have that. When you reach out to them, they can kind of pass down the word and be like, hey, we just got this, not like offer, but we have our resources where we can help you or we can help you kind of live life easier as an international student. Yeah.
So the whole deal is to right after the summit that we had in San Francisco, we have a conference in Fargo, and it's a conference of the industries. There's this organization called NAFSA. NAFSA stands for National Association of Foreign Student Advisors. Okay. It's basically the organization where all the international student directors of colleges in the U.S. are part of. We're going to go to this conference in Fargo, and we're going to be hosting a session there talking about our journey as international students and also the work that we have been doing with Steven. Mm-hmm. And we hope that the conference gives us the opportunity to find a lot of good people to end up working with in the future. So that's the whole idea, just finding organizations to work with and build a business model around organizations. In the long term, like really flash forward 10 years, something like that, we really see Steven as being the platform for multicultural adaptation in the US. Say high school, say college, say even like workforce. So if there's an international whatever coming from wherever to the US, we want Steven to be there to help them adapt and to help them make the most out of their experience.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing, you know, from what you're doing at Morningside and also kind of like on social media, I see you're giving a lot of these students a lot of value, and I can see it scaling up to that size too, to where, you know, it can be at every college. It can be across, you know, the U.S. And, you know, I can definitely see that going that way. And then I guess I usually have two questions at the end of the podcast, and you kind of touched on this already, but, you know, for the hustle part of why you wake up and you do what you do, why you pursue, you know, your passion. So what kind of like drives you to wake up and to do that?
I really like I mean, of course, the whole mindset of LLWR, but I really like, and you kind of touched on this before, the bed mentality.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a counter on my phone. It's kind of a creepy thing that I do, but I have a counter on my phone counting for when I become 80. So it's counting for my 80 years old birthday.
Like an app, or what is it?
It's just a countdown.
Oh, okay,
it's just a countdown. So I set the day to count down to my 80 years old birthday, and I count in days. So last time I checked, I have like 21,700 days or something like that. Until
I think I've seen a video that they I don't know where it was, but it was like, you have this many days in your life. And then, yeah. So go ahead and tell us.
I really have the mentality that I'm trying to like get in my mind that I'm only going to live 80 years, right? I'm only going to be alive for 80 years. And it is bizarre, dude. Like the first time that I saw it, like I literally saw how many days of life I had. The first time I saw it, I started crying, dude. Because the time that you think 80 years, so I'm 21 now. You think like 60 years, like, oh yeah, I have 60 years, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then think about it in terms of months. Think about it in terms of days, dude.
Yeah. But also think about it like from 0 to 20.
Yeah.
Like you're just started now.
Yeah.
And that whole time, you wasted you didn't waste that many days, but that's how many days passed already. So that's just kind of crazy to think about.
So it's a double-edged sword in terms of you're just in the beginning of it, but there's a set day for it, you know? So, and just going back to my counter and saying, okay, wait, last time I checked, it was at 21,800 and now it's at 21,600. Where did my 200 days of life went, you know? So I feel like that urge to live and to do stuff and to be content with the place that I'm at every point of my life is just crucial. I just wanna, when I'm dying, I just wanna look back, man. Look back at my whole life, like take a deep breath and be like, wow, what an amazing life I lived. I'm so grateful.
It really puts into perspective and about finding joy in every moment that you live and every breath that you take. You know, you can even scale it down to that, like just being grateful, but also pursuing the life like you said, live a life you'll remember. And yeah, I think that you know, that's kind of like how people should kind of live their life too, along the side of that model.
Yeah.
Last question here. What or who inspires you?
I feel like there is two people that came to mind right away after you asked that question. The person who inspires me the most is my dad. And I feel like it's the default answer for a bunch of kids to say my dad is the most important person in my life. But what the life story of my dad, it's been amazing to see, because he had an accident when I was 3 years old, and he has been on a wheelchair since then. And just seeing all the things that he did to overcome the accident and all the amazing things he continues to do has been like an extreme example of how to fight through problems in life, how to fight through adversity, how to like overcome obstacles, and just how to be a happy person and live a fulfilling life. Of course, he has problems like anybody else, but just the whole story, everything that he went through is just absolutely amazing for me. And having that example right next to me is amazing. And that's the person I admire the most. Similar to the story of Alex, Alex Waters.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, like I also admire him a lot, like all the adversity that I had,
and the way that he kind of like lives life. Everything that he does is super positive.
Yeah. So people like that I admire a lot, and I really see my dad a lot in what Alex does, and vice versa. So those two people come to mind. And another person that comes to mind as well is Naval Ravikant. Okay. I don't know if you heard of it. He's the CEO of AngelList. He's an angel investor.
Gotcha.
Amazing dude. I strongly recommend you listen to some of his stuff as well. And I really admire him because of his intellectual side. So like you hear this guy talking, dude, and it's almost like people like him.
Yeah, what's his name again? Angel?
Naval.
Naval?
Yeah, Naval. Naval is in Naval.
Okay.
And the last name is like Ravikant, Ravikant.
Okay.
Amazing guy. Like the intellectual level of everything he says is just unbelievable. And it almost seems like it's not only he's smart, he's like super wise as well. So people like him and others that I can't cite names, but seem to have achieved a different westernized version of enlightenment. So instead of being like the super Buddhist spiritual type of enlightenment, these guys have a very practical enlightenment to the Western world that we live in, this capitalistic society that we live in. And they by what they preach and the way they live, they teach you how to live a fulfilling life in every aspect of your life in the context that we're inserted in this Western world, capitalistic and this society that we live in. So I really admire the guy for his wisdom in general.
Yeah, I have to go check him out because I like listening to. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's part of our kind of further education is to listen to these people who've already has the wisdom, who's been through things and can kind of guide you to. Yeah. So I guess where can people find you, or if they want to find out more about Steven Mentor, how can they find more information about you guys? So
you guys can be following me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Samuel Padilla, PADILLA That's me on Instagram. And on Twitter, I am at Samuel Padilla, again, PADILLAC. And on Steven, you guys can find us at stevenmentor.com. It's just Steven Mentor with V, by the way. And also on Instagram is steven.mentor. You can find us in those platforms and talk to us. We're more than happy to
Yeah. So if you're, an international student who's seeking to find more guidance, more resources to, live life, easier and kind of live through your challenges, Steven Mentor can help you get through that process.
Absolutely.
Not just through the process, but to maximize your life and experience in the U.S. while you're on this journey going through college. So thank you, Sam, for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure, dude. That was a weird.
All right.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It was such a fun time talking to you, and hopefully we can have you on another time. Yeah, and I'd love to, I hope that Steven Mentor, prospers, and that's truly down to my heart what I feel. So thank you again.
So much, I also do. You personally, I admire everything that you've been doing, and just keep hustling. I really identify with all the work that you've been doing. You're a true hustler. So just keep putting in the work, keep sharing your message, and keep inspiring a bunch of young adults to actually pursue their own dreams and goals.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. We'll see you guys next time, though.